The lobby of the Imperial Orchid Hotel pulsed with tension, although not a single word had been spoken. You could feel it in the way the concierge kept glancing at the elevator, in the way the maitre d' tightened his tie for the third time, in the way even the marble floor beneath the grand chandelier seemed to shiver under invisible pressure. Something, or someone, had disrupted the sacred order of perfection in that place. And it had all begun 20 minutes earlier when she arrived. The black limousine didn't pull into the front like most did. It glided, as if the very air parted to let it through. The chauffeur stepped out without a sound and opened the rear door, his eyes fixed to the ground. He didn't speak. He didn't smile. The woman who emerged wore silence like a crown. Wrapped in a silk coat the color of winter fog, her face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat and dark glasses, she said nothing. Not even when the staff rushed forward, babbling half-English pleasantries and welcoming her to the most exclusive hotel in the country. She simply raised one hand, a single gesture, and everyone froze. It wasn't anger. It wasn't arrogance. It was something else, something colder, older, like centuries of command whispered through her stillness. From a security guard to the bellhop, no one understood her. Every question, "Would you like some tea? Do you need help with your bags?" was met with blank stares. Or rather, from her, no reaction at all. Not a blink, not a nod, just quiet power. "Where's the translator?" The front desk manager hissed in her headset, veins bulging against her temple. "Someone get the translator now." But the translator was stuck in traffic, and the woman was not the kind to wait. As the elevator doors opened for her, she glided inside alone. Floor 31, the Imperial Suite, reserved only for royalty and billionaires too rich for Google. Before the doors closed, her head turned slightly toward the staff, and though no one saw her eyes, they all felt it. That invisible judgment, that sense that they had failed some test they didn't even know they were taking. Behind the front desk, chaos erupted in hushed voices. Why didn't anyone say she only spoke Japanese? No one knew. She didn't send a file. She's already angry. You could feel it. If we mess this up, heads will roll. And then came the voice that cut deeper than any blade. Why wasn't I informed? From the marble staircase above the lobby, a man appeared. Tall, immaculate, wrapped in a navy suit so sharp it could have been tailored by razors. His eyes, cold steel with the hint of a storm, swept over the staff like a silent threat. The CEO. No one had seen him in weeks. His presence meant one thing only. This woman wasn't just another client. She was the client. The kind who could make or destroy reputations with a single phone call. And from the tension in his jaw, it was clear. Even he didn't know how to handle this one. "She doesn't speak English," whispered the manager, pale now. And the translator still. "I'll go up myself," the CEO snapped. "Send refreshments. And make sure the staff don't breathe too loud near a door." He strode toward the elevator. The lobby fell into an anxious silence, except for one quiet sound behind the large potted plant in the corner of the room, a small, rhythmic squeaking. A mop. Someone had forgotten the janitor was still cleaning near the back wall. A dark-skinned woman in a faded uniform, earbuds in, humming softly to herself as she scrubbed away a wine stain left by some careless millionaire earlier that morning. Her name tag was half covered in bleach. Her back was to them. She hadn't noticed the scene unfolding. She hadn't even noticed that the hotel's air had turned thick with anxiety. But the CEO's eyes flicked toward her, briefly, curiously, and then dismissed her. After all, she was just a cleaning lady. He had bigger problems, or so he thought. The elevator ascended like a sealed coffin, wrapped in velvet silence. 31 floors, each tick marked by the soft chime of numbers glowing gold above the doors. The CEO stood alone, one hand in his pocket, the other gripping a tablet. But his eyes weren't on the screen, they were on his reflection. He had closed billion-dollar deals, hosted prime ministers, danced with danger behind closed doors. But this was new. He hated anything that made him feel powerless. And standing before a woman no one could understand, with a reputation so cold it could freeze time, made him feel exactly that. Who was she? A ghost? A spy? A widow of some shadowy empire? The suite doors were already open when he reached the top floor. Two silent bellboys stood like statues on either side, their hands trembling slightly as they held trays with matcha tea, mochi delicacies, and fresh towels. None had dared go in. He entered without knocking. The suite was a palace within a palace. Glass walls wrapped around the room, revealing a panoramic view of the city lights stretching into infinity. The carpet was thick as snow. Orchids bloomed in silent corners. And seated by the floor-to-ceiling window was her, still in her silk coat, still wearing her hat, still silent. She didn't turn to greet him. She didn't offer a nod. She simply held a small ceramic cup in one hand and sipped. He approached slowly, clearing his throat. "Welcome to the Imperial Orchid Hotel," he said, his voice deep, calm, practiced. "I'm the CEO. I trust your journey was." Her hand raised slightly. The same gesture from the lobby. He froze mid-sentence. She placed the cup down delicately, stood with inhuman grace, and walked to the bookshelf. Her fingers skimmed over a row of French novels, then settled on a volume in Japanese. She opened it, removed a slip of paper from between the pages, and handed it to him. He took it, unfolded it, and read. It was written in kanji, elegant, precise, not a single mark of emotion. He had no idea what it said. He cursed himself for never learning the language. It hadn't seemed important when you were running a global empire built on English-speaking clients and European investors. I'll have this translated immediately," he said. She looked at him, not with disdain. Worse, indifference, as if he were a desk lamp, a minor obstacle in a perfectly curated environment. He left. The elevator doors closed behind him like a final judgment. Back in the lobby, the chaos had intensified. Staff running in and out of hallways. Phone calls in multiple languages. A waiter had dropped a tray of champagne glasses. The translator still hadn't arrived, and no one had a clue what the note meant. And that's when the sound came again. That same soft squeaking. The mop. The janitor was still there, kneeling by the corner of the lobby, this time wiping dust from a brass baseboard with meticulous care. Still humming. Still invisible to the world. Until something changed. The note the CEO held, now slightly crumpled from frustration, fluttered from his hand as he stormed across the lobby and landed near her feet. She looked at it, and then she paused. She picked it up. Her eyes scanned the kanji, and without hesitation, she stood, walked quietly to the front desk where the CEO stood rubbing his temples, and said, clear, crisp, and fluent, "Excuse me, sir. Would you like me to translate this for you?" The entire lobby froze. The CEO turned. Their eyes met for the first time. Not just a glance, not just curiosity, a full, piercing moment of disbelief, of recognition, of something neither of them could name yet. "You speak Japanese?" he asked, slowly, as if the words themselves might shatter. She didn't flinch, didn't look away. Yes, fluently. And then, in perfect Japanese, she recited the note aloud. His jaw clenched. She added, "It's not a complaint, but it is a request, one you might want to consider seriously." The CEO blinked, speechless. The janitor handed him the note with both hands, as tradition dictated, then stepped back. And in that moment, under the cold glare of chandeliers between gold columns and gasping staff, the balance of power shifted. The woman everyone ignored had just become the most important person in the building. For the first time in years, the CEO had no words. The janitor, no, the woman, stood in front of him with unshakable calm, her gloved hands now loosely clasped in Frente do Corpo, the faded cleaning uniform still damp from the mop water. But there was something wrong about the image, something that didn't align. The way she carried herself, the stillness in her posture, the weight of her gaze. It didn't belong to someone invisible. It belonged to someone who had once been seen. The silence stretched. Behind the front desk, a dozen employees pretended to busy themselves while secretly watching every twitch of the CEO's expression. The manager's lips parted, ready to interject, to fix what clearly must be a misunderstanding. But the CEO raised a hand, the same gesture the Japanese woman had used. Everyone froze. He turned to the janitor. "Come with me." No further explanation. No room for negotiation. He walked. She followed. They entered the private elevator, one reserved only for executive staff and the ultra-elite. As the doors closed behind them, the CEO pressed a code that most employees didn't even know existed. The elevator began its ascent, not to the 31st floor, but higher, to the secret 32nd floor, his office. his sanctuary, a place no guest had ever seen, and no staff member below the title of vice president had ever entered. The elevator hummed. He glanced at her. "What's your name?" There was no hesitation. "Amara." "And where did you learn Japanese, Amara?" Her voice was steady. "Tokyo University. I lived there for 4 years." The CEO frowned, brows tightening. "You have a degree?" "Linguistics and international relations." The air between them sharpened. His mind was trying to calculate. Why would someone with those credentials be cleaning baseboards in a hotel? But she offered nothing more. No explanation. No apology. Just silence. The elevator opened into a corridor lined with black marble and warm, amber lighting. On the walls, abstract paintings shimmered like they were watching. At the end, a door of frosted glass slid open, revealing the CEO's office. It wasn't a room. It was a world. Glass desks, silver fixtures, books in languages few people could read. And in the center, overlooking the entire city through an angled skylight, stood the man's throne, a minimalist chair behind a curved desk of Italian stone. He motioned for her to sit across from him. She did, straight-backed, hands resting on her lap. Not a hint of fear. He studied her. "Why are you cleaning floors?" Her answer came without drama. "Because the world doesn't always care about degrees. And because I needed the job." "Do you have any idea who that guest is?" She gave a small nod. "Her name is Mizuki Watanabe, heiress of Watanabe Holdings, one of the top 5 tech empires in Japan. Recently widowed, avoids press, travels alone, prefers handwritten notes to electronics." The CEO leaned back slowly, lips parting in a quiet breath. "How do you know that?" Amara's gaze never wavered. "Because I listen. I read. And unlike most people here, I don't assume that silence means ignorance." He stood, walked to the bar in the corner, and poured a glass of still water. His hand was slower now, the arrogance slightly dented. She wasn't just someone who could speak Japanese. She was someone who could see. "Miss Watanabe asked to meet the person who translated her note," he said finally. Amara's eyes flicked toward the skyline. "I thought she would." He turned to her. "What?" A pause. Then, quietly, "Because she's not here for business. She's here for something else. And I think she believes I might understand it." That hit him. Not because he understood it, but because, for the first time, he didn't. He set the glass down and approached his desk again. "I want you to assist her. Starting now." Amara blinked. "You'll be assigned temporarily as her personal liaison. You'll attend to her needs, translate for her, and make sure she's satisfied during her stay." He waited for pushback. Instead, she gave a smallest nod. "And after?" she asked. "After?" He studied her face again, almost reluctant to finish the sentence. "We'll talk." The intercom buzzed. The manager's voice shakes her. "Miss Watanabe is requesting tea." She asked for the translator. Amara rose. Without another word, she walked to the elevator again. And for the second time that day, the man who ruled empires watched her go and realized he had just met someone he couldn't control. The elevator doors whispered open once more on the 31st floor. But this time, the air didn't tremble. This time it breathed. Amara stepped out slowly, her footsteps soft against the Persian rug that stretched down the corridor toward the imperial suite. The bellboys had vanished. The hallway was deserted, as if the entire hotel had instinctively backed away, leaving this space untouched, sacred. She paused at the door. No knock, just presence. The door opened from within, soundless. Mizuki Watanabe stood there, tall and elegant in a black silk kimono with silver cranes dancing along the fabric. Her hair was pinned with a single jade comb. The hat was gone, the glasses too. Her face, now visible, was composed like porcelain, but with eyes that had seen wars of the heart. She stared at Amara for a long moment, then stepped aside. No words, just trust. Amara entered. Inside, the lights were dimmed. A gentle koto melody played from somewhere. Maybe the ceiling, maybe a hidden speaker. A tea set waited on a low table, steam curling from the spout in slow spirals like breath in the winter air. Mizuki sat on a cushion and gestured for Amara to do the same. They both knelt. Neither spoke. There was a rhythm to it all, pouring, offering, receiving. Every gesture deliberate. Every movement a sentence in an ancient language of ritual and respect. Amara had studied it once, long ago, in a quiet apartment in Tokyo, with a host mother who had taught her more about grace than any professor ever could. Mizuki's hands moved without flaw, but her eyes watched. Every twitch of Amara's fingers, every breath she took, every pause. And then, after 2 sips and a silence deep enough to drown in, Mizuki finally spoke. In Japanese, "You carry sorrow." Amara looked up. She didn't reply. Mizuki set her cup down gently. "Not many speak our language with that accent. Yours is not from Kyoto, not from Tokyo. You carry the softness of Hokkaido. And something else. A shadow." Amara answered, also in Japanese. "I lived in Sapporo for a year. The rest, I carry inside." A brief silence again. Then, Mizuki tilted her head. "Why are you cleaning floors?" This time, Amara smiled slightly. A tiny curve of the lips, more bitter than amused. "Because when I returned to my country, no one saw my worth. I was too qualified for simple jobs, too inexperienced for the ones I studied for. Eventually, I stopped applying." Mizuki's eyes narrowed, not with judgment, but memory. "I know that prison," she said. There was a stillness between them then. Not awkward, heavy. 2 women, 2 lives, different worlds, same walls. Mizuki lifted a small box from the floor beside her, lacquered black with golden accents. She opened it, revealing a delicate, folded paper, an envelope. She handed it to Amara. Inside, a handwritten letter in elegant calligraphy. Amara read it silently. Her heart began to pound. The letter was an invitation, not for an event, but for a mission. Mizuki was not here for leisure, not for publicity. She had come with a purpose, one that required secrecy, trust, and someone who could understand more than language. Someone who could move through the cracks of the world unseen. "You are the only one in this place who sees without needing to be seen," Mizuki said softly. "Will you help me?" Amara looked up slowly. "What exactly do you need?" Mizuki's expression turned distant. "Truth. Buried truth. Someone close to me died. The world says it was an accident, but I do not believe in coincidences. And this city, this hotel, is where it began." A chill ran through Amara's spine. "You think someone here?" Mizuki placed a finger to her lips. Then, without another word, she poured them both another cup of tea. But this time, it tasted different. This time, it tasted like secrets. And downstairs, in his private office, the CEO stared at the elevator camera feed, showing Amara walking with Mizuki Watanabe side by side. He narrowed his eyes and quietly whispered to himself, "Who are you?" The city outside flickered like 1,000 restless hearts, unaware of the quiet storm brewing 31 floors above them. Amara stepped out of the Imperial Suite just before midnight. Her face was composed, but her breath was not. The conversation with Mizuki had unmoored something inside her, something that hadn't stirred in years. Purpose, fear, fire. She walked down the hallway slowly, thinking. Mizuki hadn't named names. She hadn't accused. But her eyes, sharp as glass, had landed on one specific name printed on a letterhead of the hotel welcome packet. Emerson Grant, CEO. And though Mizuki hadn't said the words, Amara felt it. This wasn't just about a mysterious death. This was about power and betrayal. Downstairs, the hotel was quieter now. The staff had retreated into routine. The symphony of urgency had faded into the soft background hum of midnight. Muffled footsteps, distant jazz from a bar, and the occasional ding of an elevator. Amara returned to the staff quarters through the back corridors. No one noticed her, not even the security guard whose name she remembered, but whose eyes had never met hers. That was the advantage of invisibility. You could go anywhere, hear anything. Her locker was cramped and rusted at the hinges. She opened it slowly and reached for a small notebook hidden behind a line of spare gloves. It was old, worn at the corners, pages scribbled with dates, room numbers, overheard conversations. A habit she'd formed over the years. Not for spying, for survival. But now it might serve something bigger. She sat on the bench and flipped through the notes, stopping at one particular entry from 2 months ago. Room 3104, guest dead in bathtub. Apparent overdose. No prior complaints. Staff shaken. CEO arrived personally. Case closed in 48 hours. Body flown to Japan. She hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now, Mizuki Watanabe's last name matched the signature on that room's guest form. And that changed everything. Back upstairs, Emerson Grant stood at his office window, tie loosened, sleeves rolled. A glass of whiskey untouched on the table. His assistant had long gone home. The lights of the skyline reflected in his eyes, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He replayed the scene again and again in his mind. Amara reciting the note, Mizuki's calm reaction, the quiet looks exchanged between them. There was something happening under the surface, and it was happening without his permission. That was unacceptable. He pulled open a drawer and removed a sleek black file folder with the hotel's confidential staff records. Page after page, he flipped until he found her name. Amara Delaney, hired 18 months ago. No red flags. Lives alone. No emergency contact. Background check. Clean. Too clean. He sat down, jaw tightening. How does someone with her education end up wiping floors? He reached for the phone, but paused. No. If this was what he suspected, it was better to watch. Let her think she was still invisible. Let her lead him where she thought she was going. And then intercept the truth before it ever reached daylight. Back in the locker room, Amara slipped her notebook back into the locker. Her mind was racing, but her face gave nothing away. She knew eyes were beginning to turn toward her now, some out of curiosity, others out of suspicion. The CEO hadn't asked questions yet, and Mizuki had said something else, just before Amara left the suite. Something that lingered like incense in her mind. Those who hide truth, Mizuki had whispered, often wrap it in kindness, or power, or charm. But sometimes it smells like cologne and money. Amara closed her locker. She could still smell his cologne from the elevator ride, and it was starting to make her sick. The next morning, the hotel bloomed into life with mechanical elegance, like a performance rehearsed to perfection. Bellboys with polished shoes, chefs slicing fruit into perfect geometric shapes, front desk smiles stretched like porcelain masks, and high above it all, behind tinted glass, Emerson Grant watched. He wasn't reading emails. He wasn't on calls. He was watching her. A discreet camera feed displayed 4 panels across his tablet screen. The lobby, the staff corridor, the guest elevators, and one trained on the janitor's break room. A place no guest would ever care to see. But he cared now. He watched Amara walk in, hang her faded coat, and pour a cup of vending machine coffee. Alone, calm, efficient. She didn't talk to the others. Didn't gossip. Didn't linger. Invisible again. Exactly how she had survived this long. But Emerson no longer believed it was survival. He believed it was strategy. Give me a copy of her original application, he said to his assistant through the earpiece. Everything. References, school records. I want to know who she was before she got here. The assistant hesitated. She's not in trouble, is she? Emerson didn't answer. Meanwhile, down in the guest wing, Amara stood outside Mizuki's door. She knocked softly this time. The door opened at once. Mizuki stood already dressed, her hair coiled high, a black leather notebook in her hands. Today, her face carried a subtle shift. Less porcelain, more blade. Walk with me, she said in Japanese. Amara followed. They didn't speak until they reached the rooftop garden, one of the hotel's lesser-known secrets. A suspended world of bonsai trees, koi ponds, and cherry blossoms that never bloomed at the right season. Mizuki sat by a stone bench overlooking the garden wall. The sky was blue, but sharp. She opened her notebook. Inside, a collection of clipped articles, hand-copied emails, and even a printed flight itinerary. Amara's eyes scanned the first page, a death certificate. Male, 39, cause, overdose. Location, Imperial Orchid Hotel, room 3104. Mizuki said quietly, my brother. Amara swallowed. I was told he fell into depression after his company collapsed. Mizuki continued, that he overdosed in a moment of weakness. But he was a survivor, just like me. We come from generations who bled through war and rebuilt through shame. He didn't give up. He never would have left without a fight. She flipped another page. A photo. Grainy, low quality, but clear enough to see. It showed a man in a sleek suit escorting Mizuki's brother through the lobby weeks before his death. The face of the suited man was turned slightly, but Amara recognized the posture. The jawline. The watch. Emerson Grant. Amara felt her hands begin to tremble. Mizuki looked up, catching the reaction. You recognize him. A pause. Then, he's the CEO. I know who he is. Mizuki replied. I just didn't know he was still here. I thought he would have run by now. Amara whispered. You think he's involved? Mizuki didn't answer. Instead, she pulled a smaller photo from the inside of her notebook. It was a candid shot. A woman, blurred in the background of a corporate party, holding a champagne tray, smiling, unaware she was in the frame. It was Amara, taken over a year ago. Mizuki watched her carefully. You were there, at the gala. You served drinks at my brother's last public appearance. Amara's chest tightened. Memory came like ice water. She had worked the event. As temporary staff. She remembered the suit, the tension, a brief glimpse of Emerson whispering something harsh to a guest in the corner. A whisper that made the man's hands tremble as he set down his glass. I didn't know who he was, Amara said softly. Not back then. Mizuki's voice was calm. But you're beginning to understand now. And just like that, the garden didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt like a chessboard. And Amara had just realized she was no longer a pawn. She was standing between two kings, one of wealth, one of grief. And both were watching. By noon, the hotel sparkled with its usual artificial perfection. But beneath the surface, threads of truth and deception twisted tighter. Amara returned to her usual duties. At least, that's what it looked like. She cleaned hallways. She smiled at guests. She refilled flower vases with fresh orchids. But inside her mind, a storm raged. She couldn't stop seeing the photo. Herself, smiling at the gala, mere feet away from a man who would be dead days later. And Emerson Grant, so polished, so calm, lingering just out of focus in the same frame. Coincidence? Or choreography? In the service hallway near the banquet kitchen, Amara caught a familiar voice. She slowed her pace, letting the mop glide casually across the floor, while her ears did the work. I don't care how long she's been here. The manager snapped to someone over the phone. If she starts asking questions outside her duty zone, I want her gone. Amara's stomach twisted. They were talking about her. She picked up the pace and turned the corner before she was noticed, heart pounding like war drums. She knew they wouldn't fire her outright. Not yet. Not after the CEO himself had assigned her to Mizuki. But they were circling, watching, and someone was afraid. Which meant one thing. Mizuki was right. Someone in this hotel had blood on their hands. Back in her locker room during a short break, Amara pulled out her notebook and stared at the old entry again. Room 3104. She had to see it. Not just a log. The room. She waited until shift change. When most of the cleaning staff were switching rotations and security was distracted with a high-profile wedding rehearsal downstairs. She slipped through the maintenance corridor with a fresh set of linens in a cart, just in case she was spotted. When she reached 3104, she knocked once, just to be sure. No response. The key card from her cleaning credentials worked. The door opened, and the ghost stepped in. The room smelled faintly of lemon polish and old secrets. The layout was the same as other high-end suites. Velvet armchairs, an Art Deco minibar, and enormous bay windows facing the skyline. But Amara could feel something different. The energy was wrong. She walked to the bathroom. It was immaculate, but too immaculate. The tub's porcelain gleamed like it had been sterilized. She knelt, ran a gloved hand around the inside rim. A tiny scratch, barely visible, but not part of the original tub. A scuff in the glaze. She took out her phone and snapped a photo. Suddenly, a voice sliced through the quiet behind her. You really shouldn't be here. Amara spun. The CEO stood in the doorway. No suit today. He wore a black button-up shirt, sleeves rolled, a slight sheen of tension on his brow. His eyes locked on hers like iron gates. She straightened slowly. I was just cleaning, he finished, voice smooth. Because if you were, you've taken quite a detour. She said nothing. He stepped into the room, letting the door close behind him. What are you looking for, Amara? The way he said her name sent chills down her spine. She forced calm into her voice. Just curious about why Mizuki Watanabe chose this hotel. Why she insisted on staying in the exact suite where her brother died. His gaze sharpened. Is that what she told you? I read the report, she lied. He died here, and you were involved in the cleanup. He paused and smiled, but it wasn't kind. Do you know how many people die in hotels every year? He asked, stepping closer. People overdose. People cheat. People fall asleep. and never wake up. It's not always a conspiracy, Amara. Sometimes it's just math. She didn't blink. But you knew him, didn't you? He stopped inches from her. I know a lot of people, he said softly. Most of them forget me. Until it's too late. For a moment, the silence crackled between them like static. Then he stepped back. You're smart. I see that now. But you're walking into waters deeper than you know. Mizuki Watanabe isn't here for answers. She's here for blood. He turned to leave. And what are you here for? Amara called after him. He paused in the doorway, then looked back with something almost like sorrow in his eyes. I'm starting to ask myself the same question. He left. The door clicked shut behind him, and Amara finally let her breath escape, heart thundering. She looked down at the photo on her phone, then back at the bathtub. She wasn't sure which was more dangerous, the truth that Mizuki wanted, or the secrets Emerson was trying to bury. But one thing was clear. She was no longer a witness. She was now a player, and the game had just turned deadly. The sun dipped behind the skyline like it was retreating from the mess that was unfolding inside the Imperial Orchid Hotel. Amara didn't return to her regular duties. Instead, she wandered, not aimlessly, but deliberately, through hallways usually off-limits, past doors with names engraved in gold, into conversations that weren't hers. She wasn't a janitor anymore. She was a shadow in heels. By the time she made it back to her locker, there was an envelope taped to the door. Thick, cream-colored, with the hotel's gold emblem embossed across the seal. No name, just a time. 8 p.m. Rooftop lounge. She opened it. Inside, a single card. Let's speak where the walls don't listen. She held the card for a long moment, heart flickering between curiosity and caution. Part of her wanted to burn it. The other part, the louder, more dangerous part, wanted to go. By 8 o'clock, the rooftop lounge glowed with amber lanterns and a breeze that carried the scent of lavender from the garden below. Few guests came up here at this hour. Fewer still were allowed to dine privately. The staff had been cleared. The jazz music had been replaced with the distant hum of city life. The table was set for two. Emerson Grant was already there. This time, no suit, just a black turtleneck, gold cufflinks, and an expression she couldn't read. He rose when she approached. Amara, he said simply. She took her seat. For a moment, they didn't speak. A waiter appeared like a ghost, poured wine, and vanished again. Emerson leaned back in his chair. You don't trust me. She raised an eyebrow. Should I? No, he said, but you should understand me. She didn't answer. He sipped the wine. You think I had something to do with her brother's death? She didn't flinch. Did you? He smiled. Not warmly. More like a man impressed with her nerve. I've made enemies, he admitted. I've cut corners. Bought silence. But I don't kill people. You were the last person seen with him, she said. There are photos. And yet, no police report. No charges. No story. That doesn't mean it wasn't covered up. He leaned forward. Covered up by whom? You, she replied. You have the money, the influence. And what would I gain by killing him? She opened her mouth, then closed it. That part didn't make sense yet. Emerson saw her hesitation and pressed gently. You think Mizuki is the only one searching for truth here? Amara narrowed her eyes. What does that mean? He swirled the wine slowly. Your file. No listed emergency contacts. No recent job history. A linguistics degree from a Japanese university, but no record of work in the field. You just appeared one day and started mopping floors. She said nothing. He smiled softly. So I did some digging. Her heart froze. I thought you were just an overqualified woman who got lost in the system, he said. But then I found something. Or rather, didn't find something. He reached into his coat pocket and slid a photograph across the table. A black and white image. A younger Amara, not in a hotel uniform, but in a military interpreter's uniform, beside a man in handcuffs. She inhaled sharply. I spent a year in a peacekeeping program, she said quietly. I translated for detainees in a joint intelligence unit. That photo was never supposed to. He cut her off. Why would someone with your background take a janitor job in a hotel filled with diplomats, politicians, and foreign billionaires? A long pause. Then she said it. Because I was hiding. He sat back. She continued, her voice calm now. I saw things in that program. Things I wasn't supposed to. One of the men I interpreted for disappeared after his testimony. And I realized some truths get people killed. So I vanished. Took the lowest job I could find, somewhere I'd blend in, somewhere no one would ask questions. He nodded slowly. Until today. Until Mizuki. Until the note. Until the bathtub. Until the photo. Until him. So now we're both watching our backs, he said, because Mizuki isn't just looking for the truth. She's looking for someone to blame. Amara leaned in, voice low. She's looking for justice. He met her gaze. And if she doesn't find what she's looking for? Amara's lips curved slightly. Then she burns the whole place down. A silence fell between them. It wasn't hostility. It was recognition. They were no longer hunter and prey. They were two wolves in the same forest. And the trees were catching fire. By the time Amara returned to her room in the staff dormitories, her hands were shaking. Not from fear, from realization. Emerson had dug into her past, but so had she. Over the last few days, a web had begun to form. One that stretched from Mizuki's brother to the hotel's guest records, through a line of staff who had mysteriously resigned, and into a single event that no one talked about anymore. The merger between Watanabe Holdings and Grand International, canceled abruptly 6 days after the overdose. She lit the small desk lamp beside her bed. The light buzzed softly. Her walls were bare. Her closet held only uniforms. The notebook sat on her mattress, open to a page that now seemed more important than ever. January 17th. Night shift staff sent home early. Full floor lockdown. CEO on site. No explanation given. Suite 3104. That same date matched the death certificate. She picked up her phone and typed in an access code. One that opened a private cloud server she hadn't touched in over a year. Her digital diary from the interpreter program. Recordings, transcripts, and one image, blurry, captured by accident. A man's wrist in a suit. A gold watch. The same one Emerson wore. She needed more. The security system logs. The ones only the building's engineering team had access to. She knew just where they were stored. Down in the basement. That place no guest and few staff ever went. Where power grids hummed and records were kept in shadows. She slipped out quietly. No makeup. Hoodie over her uniform. Just another face in the dark. The elevator only went to B1. To reach B2, you needed a master key. But Amara had seen one. Clipped to the belt of Marco, the maintenance chief, who always slept in his chair after lunch with headphones in and a sandwich halfway to his mouth. She'd borrowed it once just for curiosity. Tonight, she did it again. She descended into the belly of the building. The temperature dropped. Pipes hissed. The walls narrowed. She passed storage rooms, old boilers, flickering lights, until she reached the archives. Behind a locked metal cage, rows of boxes sat labeled by date and event. Power outage, 2019. Flood damage, suite 1002. Confidential guest incidents. And then, she saw it. 3104. Incident, /January 17th. Her hand hovered. She opened the box. Inside, paper logs, security reports, maintenance tickets, and a USB drive, unlabeled. Her pulse spiked. Suddenly, behind her a sound. A shoe scrape. She froze. Waited. Nothing. She spun around. The corridor was empty, but the air had changed. She grabbed the USB and slipped it into her coat pocket, shut the box, and backed out, careful to relock the cage. She didn't breathe again until she was back in the elevator, the lights glowing slowly as she rose toward the lobby. She didn't go to her room. She went to the hotel's tiny IT office, tucked behind a server room on the mezzanine floor. It was unlocked. She'd cleaned it a dozen times. No one used it after hours. She slipped the USB into the port of the dusty computer. The screen flickered. One file, CM3104, Jan 17 to 11:49 p.m. A video. She clicked play. At first, static. Then, the suite's bathroom. The tub. A man slumped inside. Mizuki's brother. A woman entered frame. Not Mizuki. Not Amara. A different woman. Blonde. Sharp features. Dressed in all black. She leaned over the man, whispered something, and reached for his fore. Amara's blood went cold. The woman wasn't trying to help him. She was adjusting the dosage. Deliberately. A minute later, she stood, walked calmly out of frame. The timestamp ended at 11:52 p.m. Amara sat back in a chair. Who was that woman? Why was the footage never reviewed? And who had deleted the digital copy? She looked up slowly. Only one person had access to the security backups, to the entire digital infrastructure of the hotel. Emerson Grant. But there was a problem. She had seen this woman before. Not in person. In a framed photograph on Emerson's desk. A charity gala. A woman beside him. His fiancée. The woman from the video was her. And Amara finally understood. Mizuki's brother hadn't just been a threat to a deal. He was a threat to a secret. And now, that secret was staring Amara in the face. Amara's hands trembled as she removed the USB drive from a port. She had seen enough. The woman in the video, cold, methodical, unflinching, was the same woman smiling beside Emerson in that glossy photograph on his desk. A photo most people wouldn't think twice about. A photo meant to convey charm, trust, status. Camila Rhodes. The name clicked into place like a lock snapping shut. Public relations mogul. Heiress to a pharmaceutical dynasty. Beautiful, brilliant, philanthropic, and entirely untouchable. But Amara now knew the truth. Camila wasn't just Emerson's fiancée. She was the woman who had killed Mizuki's brother. And Emerson had hidden it. The question wasn't whether he knew. It was why. Amara slipped the drive into her pocket and left the IT room in silence. Every shadow in the corridor suddenly whispering threats. Her feet moved fast but deliberate, head down, eyes scanning. Every person she passed could be watching her. Every camera could now be a weapon. She didn't go to Mizuki right away. It was too dangerous. Instead, she returned to her room, shut the door, and collapsed against it. Her lungs refused to fill properly. Her mind spun in jagged circles. She had proof of murder, and now she had to decide what to do with it. But even as the thought formed, her phone vibrated. No number, just a single text. Rooftop, midnight, come alone. See, her blood iced. Camila. She sat still, heart pounding in her ears. It could be a trap, but if Camila knew Amara had the video, it wouldn't matter where she hid. It was already too late to disappear. She slipped the USB in her boot, beneath the insole. Then, she went. The rooftop was quiet again, but not peaceful. The wind was colder now, sharper. The lanterns swayed like they sensed what was coming. Camila stood at the far end, back to the city, dressed in an ivory coat, her blonde hair caught in the breeze, one hand wrapped around a glass of red wine. Amara stepped forward slowly. Camila turned. Her smile was radiant, elegant, the kind that belonged on magazine covers and political fundraisers. But her eyes were steel. So, she said, you found it. Amara didn't speak. Camila sipped her wine. I wonder who it would be. The manager? One of the investors? But no, it had to be the janitor. The girl no one noticed. The one who spoke Japanese. Amara clenched her fists. What? Camila tilted her head. Because he was going to ruin everything. The merger. The clean image. Mizuki's brother had access to files. Proof that our labs were cutting corners. One leak, and everything collapses. He was going to testify. He told Emerson that night. Amara's voice cracked. So you killed him. Camila's smile didn't waver. I adjusted his four. A dose designed to look like suicide. No marks. No questions. Just silence. You're a murderer, Amara whispered. No. Camila replied softly, stepping closer. I'm a solution. The city glimmered behind her like broken glass. Why are you telling me this? Amara asked. Camila's smile faded. Because I know what you have, she said. And I know you haven't told Mizuki yet. Which means you're not sure what to do. You're scared. Smart, but scared. I'm going to the police. Camila laughed. Really? With a blurry video. No timestamp. No chain of custody? You think the police will take down me? I donate to half their fundraisers. You'll be labeled as an unstable employee with a vendetta. Fired. Discredited. Forgotten. Amara stared at her. You're bluffing. Camila stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. No, dear. I'm warning you. A beat. Then Camila handed her a card. Platinum. Elegant. Take this, she said. A job offer. In Zurich. 6 figures. A fresh identity. One condition. You leave tonight. No questions. No drama. Amara held the card like it was poison. Or, Camila continued, stepping back toward the ledge. You stay, and you disappear like he did. The wine glass dangled from her fingers. The breeze pulled at her coat. Amara met her gaze, and for the first time, Camila's smile faltered. Because Amara was smiling back, not out of fear, but defiance. I've already made my choice. Camila's eyes narrowed, but before she could speak again, a voice cut through the night air from the rooftop door behind them. Deep, unmistakable. Good, said Emerson Grant. So have I. Camila turned, and for the first time, she froze. Camila's wine glass shattered against the rooftop tiles. Her hand had slipped, or maybe her mask had. Emerson Grant stood in the doorway, his tall silhouette backlit by the pale interior lights. No longer composed, no longer distant. His jaw was tight, and his eyes, once unreadable, burned with something dangerously human. He stepped forward, slowly. Each footfall echoed like a sentence. Amara didn't move. She didn't have to. The tide had shifted. Camila, however, took a breath like she was preparing for war. You shouldn't be here, she said, her voice taut, trembling beneath the silk. I could say the same, Emerson replied. I was handling it. No, he said. You were burying it. The air turned brittle. Camila scoffed, folding her arms. You knew, Emerson. Don't pretend otherwise. You saw the reports. You knew what your silence meant. I didn't know you killed him. Her lips parted slightly. There it was. A crack. He took another step. I thought it was a scare tactic. Maybe you'd threaten him. Leak something. But murder? You crossed the line. I crossed the line. Camila spat. You built this empire on silence. On handshakes behind curtains. You think we got here playing fair? I played smart, he said. Not vicious. And what about her? Camila pointed at Amara, venom in her voice. You trust the maid with a file that could destroy us? What does she have on you, Emerson? Amara met her gaze. Just the truth. Camila laughed, sharp and bitter. The truth? Let me tell you about the truth. The truth is no one cares. Billionaires don't fall because of blurry videos and whispered stories. They fall because someone more powerful lets them fall. And what if I'm done protecting you? Emerson asked. Camila stared. Don't bluff, she warned. Not with me. I'm not bluffing, he said. I'm tired. Tired of covering for you. Tired of pretending this was a partnership. You used me, Camila. You used us. But I won't let you take Amara down with you. A silence fell. Heavy. Electric. Camila stepped closer to him. Inches away. After everything we built, she said, you'd throw it away for her. His reply was a whisper. I think I already have. For a moment, the world tilted. Camila's eyes shimmered, but not with tears. With rage. She turned to Amara. This won't save you, she said. You think you've won something, but the moment that video sees daylight, you'll vanish. You'll be hunted, silenced, buried under lawsuits and PR spin. And no one will remember your name. Amara held her gaze. Then let them try. Suddenly, Camila lunged, not toward Amara, but toward Emerson. Her hand shoved him hard in the chest. He stumbled back, shocked, but caught himself on the railing. You coward, she hissed. You always needed me to be the monster, so you could stay clean. Emerson's voice was cold. You became the monster all on your own. Camila stared at him for one long, quiet second. Then she stepped back, straightened her coat, and walked toward the rooftop door. She paused just before disappearing into the stairwell. Enjoy the fall, she said. Then she was gone. The door clicked behind her. Emerson exhaled, long and slow, like someone stepping out of a hurricane. Amara stood there, watching him. You knew more than you said, she whispered. He nodded. I just didn't know how much of me I'd have to give up to stop her. Amara pulled the USB from her pocket and handed it to him. I need this to be seen. He took it carefully, like it was a sacred object. And you? He asked. What do you need? Her answer came without hesitation. Justice. For Mizuki. For her brother. For every life swept under the rug to protect someone's empire. He nodded once. Then, with the city glowing below them, he said something that surprised them both. I'm coming with you. Amara blinked. What? I'll testify. I'll confirm the video's authenticity. I'll go public if I have to. You'd lose everything. He looked out the lights. No, he said quietly. Maybe I'd finally find something real. They stood there in silence. Two people on the edge of the world. And below, the machinery of the hotel kept spinning, unaware that its most carefully buried secret was about to explode. The press conference wasn't held in a grand ballroom or private penthouse. It was held in a quiet auditorium downtown, under fluorescent lights that flickered like nerves. No red carpet, no velvet rope, just metal chairs, handheld cameras, and microphones trembling with tension. Amara sat beside Emerson at the long table. Mizuki stood behind them, silent, dignified, her presence commanding the room without saying a word. The world didn't know what was coming, but it was about to. A soft murmur spread through the crowd of reporters as Emerson adjusted the mic. He wore no suit, just a simple black blazer, no tie. His face carried the weight of someone who had stopped pretending to sleep well. "My name is Emerson Grant," he began, his voice firm but stripped of its usual performance sheen. "I'm the CEO of the Imperial Orchid Hotel, and I've come here today to speak the truth." Cameras clicked. Silence fell like a curtain. 1 year ago, a man named Daichi Watanabe, brother of Mizuki Watanabe, present here today, died in one of our suites. The official story was an overdose. That's what I told the authorities. That's what I believed, because that's what I was told to believe. Amara watched the faces in the room shift. Confusion, then discomfort, then sharp-eyed curiosity. Emerson continued, "But the truth is, I didn't ask questions. I saw the evidence, and I buried it, because I was afraid of what it would mean to confront it." He paused, then turned to Amara. She wasn't afraid. Amara leaned forward, speaking into the mic for the first time. "I was working as janitorial staff at the hotel when I was asked to assist a guest who spoke only Japanese. That guest was Mizuki Watanabe. In trying to help her, I uncovered surveillance footage that had been hidden from the original investigation." She held up the USB. The screens behind them lit up. The video played. Silent, grainy, terrifying. The room watched as Camila Rhodes, perfect, glamorous Camila, entered the suite of Daichi Watanabe and adjusted his four. As he went still, as she walked out without looking back, gasps echoed. One reporter whispered, "My God," just loud enough to be heard. When the video ended, Emerson picked up the mic again. "Camila Rhodes was my fiancée. I had no knowledge of her actions that night, but I protected her afterward, whether I meant to or not, by failing to act. That ends now." Another journalist stood. "You're implicating yourself in a cover-up. Are you aware of the legal consequences?" Emerson didn't blink. "Yes." "And you're willingly resigning?" He nodded. "Effective immediately. All profits from my shares in the hotel will be transferred to a foundation established by Mizuki Watanabe, dedicated to whistleblower protection and corporate accountability." A stir spread through the room like wildfire. This wasn't just a confession. It was a cleansing. After the conference ended, the hallway outside filled with chaos. Flashes, voices, chases. But inside, in a small room behind the stage, it was quiet. Mizuki approached Amara with a small envelope. Amara opened it. A plane ticket. First class. Destination, Tokyo. "I want you to come with me," Mizuki said. "To speak. To lead the foundation. To be the voice for others who never got to tell their story." Amara hesitated. The room spun softly with the weight of everything that had changed. "I don't know if I'm ready," she whispered. Mizuki smiled gently. "No one ever is. That's why it must be you." And then Emerson appeared at the doorway. He didn't say anything. He just looked at Amara. She looked back. No words. Just a shared truth. A truth that had nearly destroyed them both. And instead, had set them free. Weeks passed. The city moved on, as cities always do. Headlines faded. Social media rage found new targets. But inside the corners where real change happens, where broken systems quietly begin to tremble, the story of the janitor who spoke Japanese was just beginning. Amara stood in front of Suite 3104, not as a cleaner, not as a guest, but as its new occupant. The Imperial Orchid Hotel, under new management, had offered her anything. A promotion, a check, silence. She chose closure. Emerson had left the country temporarily, awaiting hearings, court dates, and media storms. But he sent letters. Long ones. Honest ones. And in one of them, he wrote, "If I ever deserved to fall, then falling near you made it worth something." Camila Rhodes had been arrested boarding a private jet. The footage had been authenticated. Her empire unraveled faster than anyone predicted. No amount of power could silence the camera she hadn't seen, the woman she hadn't noticed. And Mizuki? She returned to Tokyo with Amara by her side. The foundation was born within weeks. Its first headquarters sat across from the Diet building in Tokyo, an unmistakable symbol that the days of whispering truths into voids were over. But today, back in the suite where everything began, Amara needed a moment. Alone, she stepped into the bathroom. The tub gleamed, scrubbed clean of blood, of silence, of stories that had been buried too long. She didn't cry. She lit a candle, whispered a name, let the flame burn down into wax and memory. And then she opened her laptop. There was a file waiting, a draft, titled simply, The Janitor Who Knew Too Much. Not a memoir, not revenge, a warning, a light, for every invisible person scrubbing the edges of someone else's empire. She typed the first line, in a world where no one sees you, sometimes the greatest power is being the one who listens. A knock at the door. She turned. Emerson stood there, disheveled from the flight, but smiling. Real this time. No mask. No suit of armor. I came straight from the airport, he said. Court let you breathe? She asked, half teasing. Long enough to ask you something. She raised an eyebrow. He stepped inside. No more secrets, he said. No more lies. Just this. He took her hand. Stay, or let me come with you. But don't shut me out. She looked at him. This man, who had once dismissed her as background noise. This man, who had fallen and chosen to rise differently. She didn't answer with words. She leaned in and kissed him. Soft, certain, the kind of kiss that only happens after fire has scorched everything else away. And as they stood in Suite 3104, once a crime scene, now a sanctuary, the city outside lit up once more. Not for power, not for wealth, but for a woman who had dared to speak, when the world expected her to stay silent. And maybe, in the end, this story isn't just about a janitor who spoke Japanese. Maybe it's about you, about how God places the right people in the right places, even when it doesn't make sense, about how the hands that clean the floor can also uncover the truth. And no matter how invisible you feel, God sees you. And when he sees, he moves. In his time, in his way. And when he moves, nothing can stop what's meant to be. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that justice still matters, and that ordinary people can make an extraordinary difference, subscribe to this channel right now. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching this video from? Brazil? The US? Nigeria? The Philippines? The UK? Let's fill the comments with voices from around the world. Because stories like this deserve to be heard everywhere. Folded hands, may God bless your life. And remember, he's still writing your story.